Oh, so much gratitude for this invitation from Valerie to share some words. And because preparing for a talk has the effect of supercharging my practice via attention, which happens to be the first letter in the ABCs of Zen. And I titled today's talk Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and the ABCs of Zen. So we'll get to the ABCs shortly. I know some of you are already very familiar with them. But first, this effect, this attention. We pay attention through the great gift of our own bodies, this whole body practice. Our sense gates are the portals of receptivity, the awareness, nexuses for the study of self and the discovery of no self, the great discovery. And when we set this intention to pay attention, our senses wake up, fully alive. And it's this very aliveness that we can enter into practice on and off the cushion. So, with all going on in the world today, and thinking about this talk, paying attention to it all, it felt resonant to use or attempt to use a Zen eye to address what we're facing front and center. And in particular, the removal, in quotes, of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as if we could remove anything at all, but especially that. It's been a personal koan, and it immediately brought to mind Ruben Habito Roshi's ABCs of Zen, which some of you might have heard via his wonderful last teisho that he gave a couple of years ago, or through Valerie's teishos, and one of mine about 2 years ago. So sitting here with DEI and the ABCs of Zen, a Sangha member, Jerome Moore, of a cousin Zen group here in Gainesville, Florida, suddenly passed away at the age of 43. He left his wife, his 2 children, and of course, many grieving family and friends and Dharma siblings. It's a difficult, premature loss, right on the heels of Mountain Cloud's beloved Johanna Sindelar's passing. And all of this just infused my sitting. This impermanence and this diversity, equity, and inclusion. On the surface, they seem to be 2 separate things. The great diversity, belonging, this one existence on the one hand, and then this gone on the other. But as we discover in our practice, these are not 2 things. So, with that, let's dive into the heart of the matter, that which speaks to loss, love, the endless dynamism of this moment, and in the face of this moment, how we can offer ourselves to support the healing of a seemingly rifted world. So one thing I wanted to acknowledge is this feeling, these deep feelings that bring so many of us to the cushion. The fact that we can feel so much, to me, this is just a personal observation, is a testament to the oneness inherent in all diversity. We don't practice Zen to relieve ourselves of the world's pain. We lean into it, as Sensei Scott would invite us to do. And we come to understand more and more clearly each day that it is our own. Even closer, it's not separate from us. We hurt when others hurt, even across oceans, time, and space. And we don't know what to do about it. So while this not knowing might be, and is, a prime place of practice, it can also feel unsettling and destabilizing. And finding a way to ground into the groundless is vital to our sustenance as practitioners and as bodies functioning on this planet. I'm going to turn towards two quick readings about nature as a touchstone, and this is going somewhere. So, this umbilicus to nature is kind of a beautiful facet of Zen, being this hybrid of Buddhism and Taoism, tapping into nature as a touchstone. But it's not exclusive to Zen. Henry David Thoreau is a good example of one who writes about this. And just a quick reading from his journal, 1856. In the springtime, he was, I won't read the whole thing, but he was on a boat in Fairhaven Pond, but there was a terrible storm. And he's struggling with the storm. And the part that I want to read is, he said, "From time to time, from under my umbrella, I could see the ducks spinning away from me like great bees. But though my progress was slow and laborious, and at length I began to get wet, I enjoyed the adventure because it combined to some extent the advantages of being at home in my chamber and abroad in the storm at the same time." Home and abroad in the storm at the same time. What a pointer. And then a second reading, this one by Mary Oliver, whose poetry truly speaks to the heart of Zen, even though she wasn't a Zen practitioner. This is one that Valerie read in 2021 in one of her Intro to Sesshin talks. It's from Mary Oliver's book, Long Life. And here it is. "Once, years ago, I emerged from the woods in the early morning at the end of a walk, and it was the most casual of moments as I stepped from under the trees into the mild, pouring down sunlight. I experienced a sudden impact, a seizure of happiness. It was not the drowning sort of happiness, rather the floating sort. I made no struggle toward it. It was given. Time seemed to vanish. Urgency vanished. Any important difference between myself and all other things vanished. I knew that I belonged to the world and felt comfortably in my own containment in the totality. I did not feel that I understood any mystery. Not at all. Rather, that I could be happy and feel blessed within the perplexity. The summer morning, its gentleness, the sense of the great work being done, though the grass where I stood scarcely trembled. As I say, it was the most casual of moments, not mystical, as the word is usually meant, for there was no vision or anything extraordinary at all, but only a sudden awareness of the citizenry of all things within one world. Leaves, dust, thrushes and finches, men and women. And I could add other genders as well. And yet it is a moment I have never forgotten, and upon which I have based many decisions in the years since. So it's this citizenry of all things that I'd like to hone in on this evening as we explore DEI. This DEI initiative in the world right now, the attempt to remove it from any acknowledgement at all, is a challenge that we navigate along with others with many very real repercussions. So it's a good time to look into the suffering and the causes of suffering and see what diversity, equity, and inclusion mean in terms of our essential nature. The citizenry of all things. Simply put, from this ultimate world, this ultimate one reality, DEI can't be removed. It's everywhere we turn. To use another of Valerie's pearls, we are soaking in it. So let's examine this a little more closely with the ABCs of Zen. So we already touched on A, attention, and its parallel in DEI would be the D, diversity. When we sit in stillness and pay attention, when the cacophony of self-identification simmers down and the barriers to seeing soften, our resistance soften, the 10,000 things, as Dogen calls it, come rushing in. 10,000 is actually a modest number, right? At any given moment, there are 10 million, 10 billion, my son might say 10 times Googleplex things. And with this rushing in, it's tempting to add Henry's allowing, that word allowing, to the letter A, Ruben's attention and ABCs, because the more we allow ourselves to receive, to be, we ultimately are this moment and its infinite capacity, and it and we become boundless. This is the great gift of our practice, one of many. The barriers of I, me, and my feel so solid until we start really paying attention and truly allowing. Then the equality of all things, the citizenry, if you will, becomes apparent in full color, free, in boundless variety and expression. Every moment is rife with a diversity of taste, touch, smell, sight, sound, thing, thought, beyond infinity. And there's another of Ruben's pearls, to infinity and beyond. There's no boundary or end to this diversity. And all we need to do is pay attention. So the next in our two acronyms is B, which represents or stands for belonging. And belonging aligns with the E in equity. When we lose ourselves only to discover that we are everywhere, there's nowhere we don't belong. We are unconditionally one with all, everything, all of existence. And yet, there's this longing for belonging that kind of defines the human root, right? The cause of suffering, in other words, going back to our noble truths. Consider Hakuin's Song of Zazen, just a few lines that really hone in on this. It says, how sad that people ignore the near and search for the truth afar, like someone in the midst of water, crying out in thirst, like a child of a wealthy home, wandering among the poor. Our practice reveals to us our nearness, the most near, our total hydration, and our utter wealth. No inequity. And yet, because so many do not see it, we behave otherwise. Valerie says, a divided world is a world divided. Even if there's a hair's breadth of difference or of separation or just the slightest bit of condition, suffering prevails. So that brings us to the third of our acronyms, compassion and its partner, the C for compassion in the ABCs, and its partner, inclusion, I in DEI. And I'm going to read this poignant poem by Arthur Symons called The Crying of Water to sort of set the stage. The Crying of Water. O water, voice of my heart, crying in the sand, all night long, crying with a mournful cry, as I lie and listen and cannot understand the voice in my side or the voice of the sea. O water, crying for rest, is it I? Is it I? All night long, the water is crying to me. Unresting water, there shall be no rest till the last moon droop and the last tide fail. And the fire of the end begins to burn in the west, and the heart shall be weary and wonder and cry like the sea. All lifelong crying without avail, as the water all night long is crying to me. I can hear Avalokiteshvara in this lament, feel the ache in the heart, hear the cries of the world, even as the world is presenting its bounty to us everywhere we turn. The water all night long is crying. C, compassion. I, inclusion. When we see the needless suffering directly caused by this I, me, my illusion, that immediately erects us into that us versus them. There it is again, right? Mindset. It's something that just makes us earnestly want to reach out in a very boots on the ground way, engaged way. Thich Nhat Hanh calls this engaged practice, to dissolve the illusion, lift the veil. We want to support those affected and harmed to effect inclusion, acceptance, understanding, and connection. That includes in ourselves, by the way, first. And to let everyone know through direct experience that no one is excluded. All things and everyone are included. I've heard it called one tissue, one fabric that has infinite and manifold expressions. I mean, just one look around or one look right here. When we wake up or even just begin to taste this reality, even just a glimpse, we're freed and we taste what true love actually is. I'm so happy that we're starting to use this word. I mean, to be clear, Valerie calls this love without an opposite. Henry calls it original love. And it's exactly why, I think exactly why, Ruben says that Zen, how do you put words to that question? What is Zen? And he says, it's awakening to the dynamic reality of this present moment and seeing love everywhere in all things. It's why Yamada Ryon Roshi once remarked, last year I think it was, that if only Putin or any tyrant would practice Zazen, there would be peace across this land. There would be an embrace of our boundless diversity as a testament of the expression of our ultimate oneness. We would shower one another with aid, healing, support, not cut it off. This deep compassion motivates us to raise awareness, and that includes compassion, as I mentioned, towards ourselves. As we cultivate, stumble even, of course, totally allowed, in our ability to stay awake, alert, aware, in order to pay attention and know what it means to truly be alive. So here are a bunch of A words again. Awake, alert. We hear this a lot in our practice. It's sesshin, awake, alert, alive, aware. And ABC starts all over again. ABC, 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 DEI, 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 DEI. And of course, it's not even in any order, right? It's all one thing. Until all sentient beings are saved. I mean, that's our bodhisattva vow. And it's a timeless practice. So I'd like to really quickly take up a case from the Shoyoroku, it's number 43, called Appearing and Disappearing. And it was inspired not only by the recent loss of our really dear Dharma friends, Jerome and Johanna, but also by this rare blood moon that we should all be able to see in all of our locations around the world. In the late night sky, it's going to be like a red orange color, just a wonder that's resulting from a lunar eclipse with the earth blocking the sun from shining on the moon in its fullness. Very rare event, apparently. What a metaphor. I mean, the bright full moon, of course, is a rather iconic symbol in Zen and Buddhism for enlightenment, our intrinsic enlightenment. And when you think of the blood red color, all I can think of is the crimson lines freely flow, the blood of our suffering. Of course, as poetic as that is, just to be clear, Zen is not about symbols, it's about the fact. To be exact, to use another one of Valerie's pearls, this is about you, your true self, not this stands for this, just this. So how do we support what Ruben calls this wounded world? We see into our true nature. So this case points to that, and here it is, case 43 of the Shoyoroku. Razan asked Ganto, what if things appear and disappear without ceasing? Ganto scolded him, saying, who appears and disappears? That's the whole case. It's so resonant with tonight's moon, isn't it? I mean, always bright and radiant and full, no matter what phase. And yet it will disappear, so to speak, when the earth blocks its radiance from the sun in perfect alignment. How resonant too with Jerome and Johanna, who cannot die, since their forms, our forms, all forms are one continuation, constantly expressing our infinite nature in each moment. How resonant with diversity, equity, and inclusion as we wake up to the fact that all of these forms and you cannot be two things. And with all of this glorious, continuous, manifold form, there can't be anybody there at all. And there it is. That's you. You are freedom. All of you. Dancing, singing, crying, grieving, helping, coping, healing, dying. All of it. All of it. I mean, who knew? Who knew this emptiness could be so fertile? So I'm just going to read the verse of the koan because I think it really expresses both freedom and diversity, equity, inclusion. It says, cutting the old entangling vines, smashing the fox's den. A leopard clothes himself with fog and changes his spots. A serpent alters his bones, and as a dragon rides the thunder. Ha! Appearing and disappearing in abundance. What is it? That's it. What is this? And is there any boundary to its freedom? So I guess if I can get a picture up on my phone for you, I saw the moon yesterday almost full, And I took a picture of it. Let's see here. I can find it. Here we go. See if I can see it across Zoom. I don't know if you guys can see that at all. Oh, it's kind of hard, huh? I pull it. Not so good. Shucks. Well, that's a branch there, and the moon's above it. Not possible, huh? Okay. Maybe I can email it. Anyway, it was nearly full. So you know how it's just got that little edge that's trying to open into its sort of maximum fullness that we'll see tonight. And it was rising above this old branch, and it was dusk, so the sky was just stark blue. And a poem just kind of spilled out. So if you'll indulge me, I'm going to read this poem that I wrote yesterday. Behold, this tender moon, light and dark, always changing as much as I am, ripening and settling, always changing as much as I am. Tonight, I notice how she's rising in the blue above an old moss-draped branch, brightening its aging, crusting bark, always changing as much as I am. Cerulean sky bears us all the shapes, all the colors, all the changing, all the light, all the dark, all the rising, all the falling, all the crying, all the loving, all the hating, all the heartbreak, all the joy, all, all, all. And the more I behold, the more I am beholden until I disappear, and all is all there is. So, I guess some just closing words, including words of tremendous gratitude to be on this shared path with you. Just an encouragement for all of us in these times, and always, of course, to sit intently, paying attention to the 10 bazillion myriad things in each and every moment. The arising, the disappearing, our belonging, and our inseparability. Then, let's rise from our cushions, over and over and over again, with arms, eyes, ears, and heart wide open. Stumble as much as we need to, as we find our own unique ways to serve the world and each other. Let us lose ourselves in our practice so that we may find our way. And I think I wrote this encouragement for myself as well. I'm so grateful that we're in this together. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity to talk, and I'm looking forward to seeing you and sitting with you again and again and again.